Cashology by FNBO, a podcast devoted to the art and science of managing your money. It's like school, except your only homework is living your best financial life. Class is now in session. Identity theft, fraud. Most of us believe it can't happen to us, but really it can happen to anyone, anytime. Anywhere from 7% to 10% of U.S. consumers are victims of identity theft or fraud every year. And this can have such a negative impact on our lives and financial health, lowering our credit scores and costing us hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So, how do we protect ourselves from identity theft and fraud? That's the question that we have for you today. Welcome, and thanks for listening to Cashology Podcast, hosted by your guide on the path to financial savvy, me, Julie Wyans. Today, I'm delighted to introduce Dave Richardson, Senior Manager of Fraud at FNBO. Welcome, Dave.
Hi, Julie, and thanks for having me on today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this podcast. So I want to introduce a little bit about myself. I am currently the Senior Manager of the Fraud Deposit Team at First National Bank Omaha, and our primary responsibility is to really monitor checking and savings accounts for suspicious activity, account takeovers, fraudulent deposits that are made, and people that maybe fall victims to scams. So we try to really protect the consumer checking and savings accounts through our various monitoring processes in order to try to prevent fraud and losses against those particular types of transactions.
Dave, I have to say, this is an extremely scary topic. And coming from someone who is in it every single day because of their job, I really want to hear from you. I mean, how does identity theft occur and what can I do to prevent it?
So identity theft can happen either ways through our own habits of things that maybe we've done unknowingly or things that are completely out of our control. One way it happens is that the fraudsters are able to steal your credentials through nefarious means, that maybe they're able to break into or hack into something and steal details that are stored at a possible vendor or merchant or somebody that you use. Or they may be able to break into your email account and find some information. It's also stolen sometimes off things that we are doing but don't realize we're doing. So maybe it's our social media presence that we're putting information on social media that's easy to identify us. It's a name of a spouse and where we went to school and our dog's name and some of these things. And they can kind of match these things together and find our email address and start matching records together to find out who we really are. And then they're able to use the tools that they have, and they have the same tools that a lot of other businesses do, to put that information together and start building your profile or finding who you are. Or maybe they can get your hands on a social security number, then your date of birth can be found, because how many of us put our birth dates on our social media profile, right? And maybe that's not locked down solid enough. So they know that, hey, you were born on January 26th of 1984. And so they got your date of birth, and they got your wife's name, because obviously your husband's name or your friend's name or whatever that's on there, because they're a friend of yours on social media. So some of our own habits drive it, but I think the majority of the cases is they're out hacking in and stealing records from other businesses and some of the well-known hacks out there and some other organizations, and being able to piece those records together to find out our identity and who we are.
Wow, Dave, you gave me a lot to think about, because as I think through Instagram posts about National Dog Day, everyone wants to talk about their dog, but the name of your dog could be an answer on one of your bank logins, right? And the fact that there could be piecemeal collection of your data that's eventually used for your financial demise is really interesting, because every time I think about identity theft, I think that it's one singular actor who's taking all of my info. But instead you're saying this could be a collection from different acts that I do that someone collects from me.
Correct. It could be a combination of things. When you talked about, National Dog Day and your dog's name. One of the recommendations I've always given is that when you're providing these secondary authentication answers, what's your dog's name? Don't use your actual dog's name. Use a name that you'll remember, but maybe it's a dog you had 3 dogs ago, or maybe it's your best friend's dog or your neighbor's dog. Don't use the information that you make readily available to other people. That's sometimes we try to use, let's say, a pet's name as a password, or sometimes it's hey, what's your dog's name is kind of your authentication piece, right? So don't use actual true information. Use something you'll remember, but it doesn't have to be something that's traceable back to you through other means. So if my dog's name is Rover and that's what I have on Facebook, for example, I might say my dog's name is Smoke, which is my dog that I had 4 dogs ago or something. So, or move the letters around or something. So you want to be careful how you expose what those answers could be. And and try to make sure you understand the relationship of what you're using as a secondary answer to what you put out there publicly for people to see.
That's actually a really good tip, Dave. I truly didn't think of that, but now it's a matter of me remembering what I thought my answer was going to be.
Sure.
So we talked a little bit about social media and what we put out there. Are there any other tips on what we share that we should maybe keep an eye out for, maybe steer clear of?
And think about when you receive a phone call, right, from maybe if they say from your bank or from somebody you do business with, and they start asking you a bunch of questions, and you think, oh, sure, I'm getting a call from my bank or from my utility company or something. When they call you and they start asking you for information they should already know, they start asking you, hey, can you tell us your social security number, your date of birth? If they've called you, they shouldn't be asking you that information, and nor should you necessarily reveal it. So, we got to be careful not to be so open to trust who we're talking to. Don't go off the phone number that you see on the call, because that can be easily spoofed. I mean, I can use a utility company's phone number, and I can say, hey, I am calling from your gas company, and your phone number shows, yep, it looks like it's my gas company. And you start giving them information. So if you're being called by them, they shouldn't really ask you for information that you need to provide to identify who you are. They should know who you are based on the call. So you shouldn't provide them with any of that information. So it's being careful to know who we're talking to and not trying to give up too much information because we think we trust who we're talking to.
Yeah, Dave, and I'm sure, as you know, in the last couple of years, I feel like spam calls have had an increase. And that's a really good tip as well to make sure is that someone is calling you and asking you for information. That's likely not something you should share someone you should share info to. Instead, you calling a bank and trying to request information and giving info there, that makes a lot more sense and is pretty normal, right?
Correct. Yes. When my fraud team, we have to reach out and speak to customers quite often. And when we do so, we don't ask them to validate any information for us other than their name to make sure we're speaking to the right person. But we never ask them for the last four of their social security number, their date of birth, because we're calling them. We already know who we're supposed to be talking to. So there's no reason to validate that information when we call them. If they call in and speak to us, of course, we want to confirm we're speaking to the right person. And if somebody calls you and they start asking you a bunch of questions, my advice is you hang up, you go ahead and look up the information of who said calling. So let's say it's your bank. You can find their regular customer service number online. It's pretty easy, or maybe through your online profile. Then call them back and say, hey, I just received a call. This person was asking me about this. Are you aware of who's asking me? Or do you have a person named Julie who's calling me and asking me about some particular activity? So we always recommend, if you don't like it, hang up the phone, call back through a number that you trust and you can verify, and then get in touch with the right people to answer whatever questions are being asked.
Right. And if it's a verified source, I mean, if it's one of your individuals calling one of our customers, they won't be offended by someone questioning their identity, right? I mean, that they would actually probably appreciate that the customer's being cautious.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we recommend that every time. And if a customer says, I'm not sure I'm speaking to, say, hey, you know what, go ahead and call the customer service number that's on the back of your debit card or through our website. Call that number and you can ask for me, and here's the department I work in, and they'll go ahead and make sure they transfer you through. So we recommend them to go ahead and call us back at the number that they validated to be accurate.
So Dave, how about data breaches? Like I mentioned, spam calls are on the rise. I also feel like there are a lot of major nationwide data breaches that occur. What do I do as a consumer to ensure that my data is protected after those?
Well, a couple of things you can do. First of all, in a data breach, there's nothing you can do to prevent the breach itself. But what we always recommend is keep an eye on your bank accounts, either through online banking, mobile banking, whatever source you trust. Keep an eye on your credit file, whether you use a free credit monitoring service or you work directly with the credit bureaus themselves. There's multiple different, there's a LifeLock and a Credit Karma and all these. And I'm not suggesting one over the other, but those are some well-known examples. But just keep an eye on your own information. Keep an eye on your bank account. Reconcile. If you don't see anything if you see a charge on your account or activity on your account you don't agree with, talk to a banker. Call your bank and say, hey, I have a charge here I don't recognize. I have a transaction that I don't remember doing. Can I look into it? Can I dispute it? If you see things on your credit bureaus that don't look familiar or you're not familiar with, contact the credit bureaus and say, I don't recognize who this inquiry is. I don't recognize what this account that was open in my name. So it's just trying to keep an eye on it diligently. Maybe it's whether it's once a month, whether it's once a week. You can also sign up for alerts from your bank. You can sign up for credit alerts. So if your credit changes, you can have these monitoring services will send you an alert that your credit changed. So it's really just trying to stay on top and monitor what's going on in your life and know when you've opened accounts and closed accounts to know that if there's any changes that they're recognized and validated.
The last question I have for you, Dave, is related to the recovery period after identity theft occurs. I mean, what does that look like? How can I recover my financial health?
Well, there's a couple of different ways to go about it. First thing to do is work with your bank to try to recover any lost funds. They've got dispute processes. They have mechanisms in place to recover money, and they have regulations and different services in place that they can do to either refund you all your money or determine who has liability, recover it back. The other thing to do is keep an eye on your credit. Right? We always say first thing to do is reach out to the Federal Trade Commission. That's ftc.gov and file an identity theft report. They've got great tools out there to help you figure out how to handle the credit bureaus, how to recover your losses, and who to contact. What do you contact? Police reports? Do you contact the FBI? Who do you work with? So we just send them primarily to ftc.gov and tell them to get the ball rolling at that point. They can file the report. And then there's a lot of steps to walk them through how to recover their losses and how to chase that down. Sometimes it can take a year, 2 years. Sometimes it can be done in months. But it's not uncommon for a victim of a significant identity theft problem to take 2 years to recover their losses.
That makes a lot of sense. So remaining diligent to try to prevent fraud and identity theft is our number one goal. But if it does happen, recovery can happen. You just have to work with your bank and figure out a plan. You've been a great guest, Dave. Truly, I really hope that none of us have to utilize this information, but it is very helpful. And every day we need to keep a lookout for potential fraudsters trying to steal our data.
I agree.
If anyone would like to know more about fraud prevention, you can go to fnbo.com/fraud prevention to learn more on how to protect your identity in a variety of ways. Thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and keep an eye out for more Cashology episodes coming your way soon. Investment products are not FDIC insured, not a deposit or other obligation of the bank, not insured by any federal government agency, not guaranteed by the bank, may lose value. This podcast should not be copied, reproduced without permission. Information and statements within this podcast are subject to change without notice. Information and statements in this podcast are for informational purposes only and are not intended to constitute investment advice or recommendations. First National Bank of Omaha does not make any representation or warranty as to the accuracy or completeness of any information or statements within this podcast.